Kia ora and talofa everybody. My name is Akire Marisela Thompson, CEO of Trust MYRIVR, and this is
Ilya Chan, Managing Director of MYRIVR.
and welcome to our first live session, where we hope to answer some questions that you might have around the app, take you through some tutorials and some real quick simple uses and tricks for MYRIVR to really simplify your experience. So yeah, so please feel free to ask any questions, but we will be going through a list of some of the frequently asked questions that we've had since we've did our soft launch, which I believe was June 2017. We've been bombarded and overwhelmed with a whole bunch of questions and support from you all, but we also understand and acknowledge that there are some minor teething issues, so to speak, or technical issues that or queries you might have. So this is an opportunity, basically from your demand, so that we can actually try and help you resolve some of those queries that you might have. So yeah, so please fire away. Have you got anything that you?
No.
Okay, so I guess the first thing that we'd like to touch on is the registration of the MYRIVR app. There have been some issues and feedback around the length of registering. So if I can let Elia, if you want to just inform people about some of that process, please.
The reason why we get you to fill in those details is like anything else that you do in any apps is usually, like ASB apps or any other apps that you put in, you usually put in your details. Now, the reason why we want your details is that so that we can, when you're doing a referral, it's easier to have all your information right at the beginning, so you're not having to enter it and then making that particular referral. It just makes the process a lot easier at the end rather than at the beginning. So yes, it takes a little bit longer, and that's something that we're looking at in terms of the new developments that are actually happening to make that registration process a lot easier. Once again, once that process is done, you're pretty much good to go. But before you actually register you into the MYRIVR, usually you'll get an email sent to you. Some of the feedback that we got is that they never received the actual email for verification. Sometimes it will go into your junk box, and if you're a government agency, you need to talk to your IT gurus in terms of releasing that email so that you're able to download the MYRIVR app straight away. So that's pretty much.
So yeah, so a lot of this in terms of how we built and designed the online registration for MYRIVR. One of the things that we wanted to do was, one, make it as streamlined as possible, as simple as possible, but we didn't want to make it so simple to the point where when you do start reaching out for help to a provider, that you get declined because you're missing a whole bunch of information. So we appreciate that there are a lot of people that have actually logged in and registered under some alias, but if you do start reaching out for help or make a referral to a driver license program or health and social services provider, counselling services, those services will decline your referral if you don't have your real contact details in there. So one of the issues that then creates is you could be clogging up the line and the referral system where others who are actually trying to reach out for help, who have got their correct details on there, are being held up because of the deficiencies and people not filling in their real names. So that's part of the reason. But we did this when we consulted the New Zealand Police about 4 years ago. So we co-designed this with the providers, health and social services providers, frontline workers, and police officers, victims and offenders, so that we could sort of tailor it to your needs rather than what we believe. So, let me see this. Okay, so I've got a question here. Thank you, Enoka, for the question. How do I, so Enoka's asking, how do you see the state of New Zealand social services? I see it as a huge maze that not only the workers from within those social services are a bit confused about, but if they are confused about this whole maze of health and social services, how do we expect our public, the community, and by and large, the biggest consumers of these services to actually know and navigate these health and social services? So that's part of the reason why we created MYRIVR.
And the reason why, and a lot of the questions that we get back is, what is MYRIVR? And hence why we said MYRIVR is about your information and how do we navigate through this complex social and health services when we're needing help at our crisis point. Hence why this was actually built by community for community. And as the app evolves, we're evolving with community consultation. So at its infant stage, you know, the actual MYRIVR app is growing as well as our followers, trying to seek help within their own neighbourhood, their own communities. Hence why this tool has gone out, you know, to our followers, but also to the MYRIVR community, that you're able to access more than 20,000 health professionals, over 7,000 health and social services around the country. Hence why this tool's been so successful in getting to the hands of our community.
Yeah. Hey, Malo, Xavier, hey, thanks for the shout, Uzo. Thank you, and thank you too, brother, for all the awesome work you're doing to help, you know, improve the not only the literacy levels, but the employment opportunities for our vulnerable communities out there. Also, well done, man. I'm just going through some. So while I'm trying to go through some other frequently asked questions, I'd just like to take this opportunity also to pardon me, acknowledge our sponsors. Thank you so much for the support from our local boards, Maunga Kia and Tamaki local board, the Manukau local board, and our partners as well, Kiwi Daddies, Key to Life Trust, our friends out there from Washington DC and New York, Stop the Silence, whom we will soon be embarking on a partnership here in New Zealand with to deliver programs around child sexual abuse. So, and those are just some of our partners, but another frequently asked question that we've had is around providers. How do we register as a provider? So last year we started off with only 180 providers, which were mainly providers from within the South Auckland area that, in consultation with MSD and the New Zealand Police here in South Auckland, they gave us this list of 180 providers. Then we went out, we created a Facebook page around April last year, 2017, and then we just basically invited followers of the MYRIVR page to create the demand and let us know what other services are out there in the community that they would like to see. So originally we only focused on just the health and social services providers, but we had overwhelming recommendations by some of the users of these other services, which we hadn't listed and we hadn't thought about. But these services included driver's license. These services included things like financial literacy. These things included things like how to have relationships. So we then started to include these services. So we've grown from our original 180 providers last year to, thankfully, based on your recommendations, we've now grown to become the largest in that directory of its kind in the world here in New Zealand. So we now got over 7,000 health and social services on the app, which is represented by more than 20,000 professionals out on the front line from the top of the North Island to the south of the South Island. So there is help available to you 24/7 if you need help. Even you yourself as a professional, if you're out there engaged and exposed to providing a service to our people in the community, also know as well that you too, it's okay for you too to reach out for help. So.
Question there.
Okay, another question here. Are you getting a lot of support from the government for this? Okay, so that one's been a bit of a roller coaster one, support from government. But we are working on it. You know, we've navigated that government space for some time now. I am an ex public servant, spending 12 years in New Zealand Police. So my work largely within government have pretty much inspired this work. So we do have some teething problems here, some challenges there, but they're challenges that we anticipated from the outset. I mean, our MYRIVR was designed in consultation with government. The New Zealand Police Headquarters actually commissioned the governance group to drive the development, design and direction of MYRIVR. But for one reason or another, they pulled the pin on it. But that's not to say we are not currently engaging government. We are, you know, still working with other government organisations. I mean, we've been privileged with the support of the Ministry for Pacific People, Te Puni Kokiri. We're currently in negotiations with the Electoral Commission. We've also got a number of local government as well in support of us. So this is the likes of the Auckland Regional Council and its local boards. We've got 2 local boards who've contracted us. That's MYRIVR local board and the Mangakiki and Tamaki local board, who've contracted us as well to improve the awareness of MYRIVR in their community so that we can get their vulnerable communities to engage in a whole lot of services that are run out of their local boards. So again, we'd like to acknowledge those organisations who've supported us. We've also in discussions as well with the Waitemata District Health Board. Elia, if you'd like to talk about that relationship.
Yeah, we're still talking in terms of how do we access mental health services. So that's still in discussions. In terms of just bringing back to the comment of support from government, just letting everybody know that this is a self-funded project. This was actually funded by the directors, who pretty much sold their houses and everything they could to actually get this up to where it is now, and that was 4 years ago. So the commitment and the passion's there in terms of getting this out to all our communities out in New Zealand. We are Pacific, but this is for all New Zealanders and people that are overseas. I can see one of the comments is that one of the viewers said, I'm based in Australia and it's something we need here. Health and social service issues is not just here in New Zealand, it's across the globe. And we are getting there. We are actually heading to Brisbane next month to launch MYRIVR at the inaugural, the Polyfest in Brisbane. So anybody that lives in Brisbane, please go down and support the first Polyfest. And so hopefully I've been over there a couple of weeks ago and sort of did some research in terms of what's actually happening in Australia, and the same issues and problems exist pretty much like here in New Zealand. So yeah, so we will be embarking in Australia and other countries as well to pretty much get MYRIVR out there.
Yeah, so Other questions as well. So some of the other questions that have been also raised is around the privacy of information. So MYRIVR. So there's a reason why we put my in front of the river. So the actual company who created this is actually called River, but we've called it MYRIVR because MYRIVR is your own passport to your own information. So one of the challenges that we saw within the whole health and social sector is back when I was a police officer, quite often or more often than not, we get somebody dropped off at our door, or we'd pick somebody up, arrest somebody, and some police from down the line or some other services have dealt with the guy, but because nobody really shares their information, nobody really knows what is the context of this individual that we're dealing with. So we end up with a whole bunch of police officers who aren't trained health and social workers trying to fix a problem with a 12-year-old kid who's had problems for the last 6 years of their lives. But because organisations tend to actually own their own information and not really share their information, we end up with a problem where now this police officer has to spend 2 weeks trying to find out what's happening, what they can do with this person before they actually find a solution for them. A good case in point is a good friend of ours, Filippo Levi, about a month ago had 3 young teenagers dropped off at his office by police officers. These teenagers were having some difficulty at school. And so the police officers, not being trained youth workers, dropped them off at Filippo, who was doing awesome work with his team, but dropped them off with no paperwork. So then Filippo had to spend 2 weeks that he already had planned for other things to try and find out what context what is the context that's actually led to these kids doing whatever it was that caused them to be sitting at the back of a police officer's car, who are now being dropped off at the front door of Filippo's office. So this whole inefficiency, this whole deficiency of people not working together, people working in isolation, and people hiding behind statistics, people hiding behind things like privacy. We've removed that by actually providing MYRIVR. MYRIVR as in your own personal information, your own passport of information, similar to your own bank accounts that you have online. You control where that information goes. If you get dropped off, if these kids had actually been engaged with MYRIVR, their passport of information would have been there. The police officers would have known directly where to take this kid, because the kid would have been happy to share, and they would trust whoever it is that they send their information on, so that when that kid gets there to that organisation would have already had access to that kid's passport of information and can then start the solution for that kid, because time is of the essence. If we don't get if we're not efficient enough in our response to some of these problems, then we risk reaching that crisis point. When we reach that crisis point, we've got a 90% chance of not being able to save you. If we hit you at the infancy, when the problem is small, we have more than a 90% chance of saving you from reaching that crisis point. So MYRIVR is about your passport of information. You can share it with whoever you want, and then that removes a whole lot of risk from organisations, either fibbing stats or accidentally, because the reality is people do accidentally share information, and then you get huge fines for it. But yeah, we want people to be able to streamline information as much as possible and work together as a collective. We've only got 7,000 providers listed on MYRIVR, represented by more than 20,000 professionals. There are almost 100,000 providers out there. Nobody seems to know what's actually working, where they are, who they are, when they operate, what languages they deliver them. And I bet you if you were to ask ministers that fund a whole lot of these organisations, half of them wouldn't know what organisations are working and what isn't. But equally, because of your demand, we've actually been able to identify some of these other organisations out in our communities that provide free driver license programs, that provide free budgeting, that provide free financial literacy, housing, blankets, food, help with transport, all these little things that if we overlook all the support for the small things, then they become tomorrow's multi-billion-dollar problem, which is all the things that we've been conditioned to believe has been a problem. We've been conditioned to believe that suicide is a problem. We've been conditioned to believe that domestic violence is a problem. We've been conditioned to believe that things like mental health is a problem. These aren't the problems. And as one of our Facebook followers says, these are the outcomes of the problems. If we don't fix the small things here, like literacy, how to have relationships, these little things, if we don't fix them, they then become this problem here, which costs us $54 billion of taxpayer money. $54 billion, the recent review showed that 90% of it actually goes on picking up the pieces. Every suicide costs us almost $3 million. Every death on the road costs us $5 million. Who's actually winning from any of our strategies? Not the community I go home to. So that's why we created MYRIVR, so that you can tell us what's actually working and we design it to meet your needs.
Yeah, so for MYRIVR is going to be similar to Airbnb, but only for health and social services. The reason why is that there needs to be transparency, accountability, and visibility of these providers, and hence why the only people that can actually sort of comment and make these providers accountable is our own community who uses these services. So that's where we're sort of heading towards. I mean, obviously in our own personal life, we tend to make reviews on restaurants and movies, and however, health and social services is the only services that don't get rated. Hence why we're bringing in a rating system and all that sort of stuff, so that the community ownership and community empowerment to actually start deciding what it looks like in terms of what our social and health services look like as well. So that's where we're heading towards.
Yeah, I see those was here Tupola Marosa Fozo. Nice to see you, brother, and keep up the good work as well with your church and the young people that you work with. Man, you're doing some awesome work. And thanks for the shout out, Uso.
So we'll probably just leave it at that, because and then hopefully we'll try and do this every week, just bringing new topics, telling you about our history, where we're at in terms of MYRIVR, keeping everybody posted. But if you do have any Q&As, please, one, check out our Facebook page, and please, second, is we would like to have downloads as much as possible.
So I just so we're currently in negotiations with an organisation for funding, and one of the deliverables they'd like to see us do is to work with a number of the following organisations. So if you're watching, please share. But we would like to engage and start working partner up with the following organisations. If you could help us, please. We'd like to partner up with at least 10 Pacific Island churches from around the Auckland region to promote MYRIVR in your churches, in your communities, in your homes. We'd also like to partner up with 10 maraes from around the Auckland region as well to do the same thing. We'd also like to partner with 10 high schools from around the Auckland region as well, and 10 employers. And basically this partnership is to help us achieve our strategy. Our strategy for MYRIVR, we have a 3-pronged strategy. Very simple. The first one is to build awareness that MYRIVR exists. 2 is to build champions of MYRIVR, so that you can champion the message to your workplace, your schools, your mara, your churches, your own community. And 3, which is our long-term one, is to build ownership. The reason why that, pardon me, the reason why that ownership is very, very important to us is because regardless of what policy is in place, regardless of what government's in place, these things like homicides, things like suicides, domestic violence, they're not happening in Parliament. They're also not happening in in these offices that are creating all these policies. They're actually happening in your home, my home, your backyard, my backyard, our community. So we need to own these problems. And the only way we can actually own these problems is for us to be aware, have the knowledge of what support is available to us so that we as a collective can create meaningful, sustainable, and long-term solutions that allow us as a community to all thrive. A lot of our people don't migrate to New Zealand to become higher suicide rates in the OECD for youth. We don't migrate to New Zealand to have the highest, second highest incarceration rates after America. We all come to New Zealand regardless of what the pigmentation of your skin is. We all come for one common purpose, that's to thrive, not to just survive. We come here to thrive, not to survive. So if we, MYRIVR, can help all those different organisations like churches, marae, employers, schools, if we can help improve your awareness of what's available out there to you so that you can reach out to them before it reaches a crisis point, then we're helping you build ownership, we're helping you build champions, and we're helping you take the power back to your communities, because MYRIVR is built upon the Samoan proverb, e whawhoi lea la mea lea la mea. That translates to solutions for issues within the community can be found within that community. Because quite often, a lot of our leaders tend to reach out for places like Canada for solutions. They reach out to places like America for solutions, places like Europe. But our communities, especially here in South Auckland, we're descendants of the best navigators history has ever known. So we want to help you awaken those navigators, awaken those leaders within our community to build our own solutions that are meaningful for us, instead of being told what, how, what and how to walk and breathe and how to think. We are navigators and innovators ourselves. So just want to leave you on that note, but please, we are looking for 10 of each of those organisations to partner up with. So please share it out to your networks, and please feel free to share this live feed after, and also send us feedback as to what you'd like to see in future video live sessions. But it's now lunchtime, and we're very, very hungry. But whaftai tele, manuela sangaras, how do we turn this off? Okay.